Every product around you exists because of a plan. Welcome to the Industrial Analyst, where we uncover the strategy behind industry.
All right, let's just jump right in. Have you ever been in a big company just full of brilliant people, but it feels like nobody is on the same page? The left hand has no idea what the right hand is doing. Well, that's a massive problem. It's called strategic misalignment. And honestly, it's one of the hardest things for any business to solve. And it all really comes down to this one question, doesn't it? Sales is battling it out with operations. Operations is getting totally frustrated with finance. Look, everyone is working their tail off, but it feels like they're all pulling in completely different directions. So, why? What's going on here? Let's get into it. So the number one reason for all this internal friction, the main culprit, has a pretty simple name. We call it the silo mentality. This right here, this is the villain of our story today. Think about how companies have traditionally been set up. They're organized by function, right? You've got the marketing department over here, the production department over there, and so on. The best metaphor is to picture them as giant grain silos on a farm. Each one stands on its own, completely separate with these thick concrete walls between them. And when that happens, communication gets slow and rigid. And worst of all, each department is just focused on hitting its own numbers, no matter what it costs the other teams. And this slide just lays out the built-in conflict perfectly. The sales team wants to keep customers happy, which means they need fast, custom orders and super flexible production. But the operations team, they want to maximize efficiency, which means they need long, stable, predictable production runs. And then finance comes in and says, hey, we need to keep costs low, so keep that inventory as small as possible. You see the problem, right? They're all set up to work against each other. And here's the absolute key takeaway. When every single department tries to make its own little world perfect, the company as a whole gets worse. The entire system becomes suboptimal. It's like, sure, everyone might hit their individual targets, but the company itself completely misses the real goal. So if silos are the villain in this story, then who's the hero? Well, the hero isn't a person, it's a whole new way of thinking. It's about making a shift toward becoming a truly cross-functional organization. And this just spells out the difference perfectly. The old way, the silo way, builds walls. It's all about my department, my metrics. The new way? It's all about building bridges. It focuses on the entire process, from the first spark of an idea all the way to a happy customer. It gets everyone to see the entire system, not just their one tiny piece of it. So what does this actually mean in practice? It's pretty cool, actually. You take all the smart ideas we use to manage our external supply chains, coordinating with all our different suppliers and distributors, and you apply that same logic inside your own company. It's all about getting your own departments to work together like they're one single, lean, mean, high-performance team. Okay, so once you start building these bridges and you've got this cross-functional team that's thinking about the whole system, what's next? Well, their first huge decision is a fundamental one. How do we operate? Does the company push products out to the market based on a forecast, or does it pull them through based on what customers are actually buying? Let's break this down. A push system is the old school way. You make a forecast, let's be honest, it's a guess about what customers are going to want, and then you push a bunch of product out there. The massive risk, your guess is wrong, and now you're sitting on a mountain of stuff nobody wants. A pull system is the opposite. You wait for a real customer to place an order, and then you pull the product through your system. The risk there, of course, is that demand suddenly spikes and you can't keep up, leading to stockouts. Now, that heavy reliance on forecasting in a push system, it leads to a huge, well-known problem. A tiny little error at the beginning of the chain can set off an absolute avalanche of chaos all the way up. It has a name you might have heard of, the bullwhip effect. So here's how it plays out. Let's say a retailer sees a tiny increase in sales. They get a little nervous and order a bit extra, just in case. The wholesaler, seeing that slightly larger order, thinks, whoa, demand must be taking off. So they order even more from the manufacturer to be safe. Well, the manufacturer gets this giant order and thinks they've hit the jackpot, so they crank production way, way up. And just like that, a tiny little ripple of uncertainty down at the customer level becomes a tidal wave of useless, expensive inventory at the factory. This brings us to the next really important layer of strategy. A company that's truly aligned doesn't just randomly pick, push, or pull. It gets way smarter. It precisely matches its entire production process to the exact type of product it's selling. And this is the beautiful tool they use to figure it out, the product process matrix. It's such a simple idea, but it's so powerful. On one side, you've got the variety of products you offer, from low to high. On the other, you've got the volume you produce. And guess what? The most successful companies almost always live somewhere right along that diagonal line. So why the diagonal? What's the magic there? Well, it's just common sense. If your factory is set up to make all sorts of high-variety, custom jobs, it's going to be incredibly slow and expensive at pumping out huge volumes. And on the flip side, if you've got a high-volume assembly line, there's no way it can handle one-off custom orders. You have to align your process to your product. This table breaks down the 4 main spots on that diagonal. Let's just walk through them. All the way up the top, for super high-variety, low-volume stuff, you have ETO, which is Engineer to Order. This is for one-of-a-kind projects where you literally design it from scratch, like a custom cruise ship. A step down is MTO, or Make to Order. Here you build from raw materials, but only after a customer orders, like custom kitchen cabinets. Then you get to ATO, Assemble to Order. This is that classic Dell computer model. They make all the parts ahead of time, and when you place your order, they assemble it exactly the way you want. And finally, at the bottom, for super high-volume, low-variety things, you have MTS, Make to Stock. Think of a can of soup. They make millions of them and just stick them on a shelf, waiting for you. Okay, we're at the final piece of this whole puzzle. A truly aligned company also has to make really smart decisions about what it does itself, what it pays other people to do, and where in the world it's going to do it. The make or buy decision is absolutely critical. The rule of thumb is this: you make it yourself if it's strategically important or something you're amazing at. You buy it from a supplier if they have some unique skill, or they can just plain do it better, faster, or cheaper. And that middle column, think carefully, that's for things that aren't strategic, but if you outsource them and it goes wrong, it could create a huge risk for your business. And last but not least, where do you actually put your factories or offices? This is a classic trade-off. You can have fewer, bigger sites, which gives you amazing economies of scale and makes things cheaper to run, or you can have more smaller sites, which gets you closer to your customers for quicker delivery, and, this is a big one, it lowers your risk if one location gets hit by something like a natural disaster. So after all that, it really leaves us with one final question to think about. When you look at your own company, or really any organization you've been a part of, do you see it building walls between people, or is it building bridges? Because at the end of the day, that simple difference is what separates a bunch of people who just happen to work in the same building from a real team that is truly pulling in the exact same direction.